right, the red button is live. We're just waiting to sync up here on streaming Facebook land. There it is. Checking LinkedIn. We are locked and loaded. All right. In 3, 2. All right. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Here we are, another conversation with myself, James Gardner, and a guest. Today's guest is going to be amazing. This is All In With Love Playground Conversations, where each and every week I sit down with some amazing people sharing some insights, some laughs, some deep conversations about the roads in life. The obstacles that we overcome, that we have to face, and as always, bringing it back to how do we walk forward in adult life with our younger selves and the inner child. So today's guest is a friend, is a colleague. She is a woman that has what a life experience. Over 30 years in the fitness industry, helping others. She's authored 2 books. She's written dozens of physical fitness manuals and course content. And the common denominator through her journeys, ladies and gentlemen, is this idea of mental health, and it's been a long, kind of slow burn for her to then at midlife and middle-aged, 46 years old, to say, hey, you know what? I'm called to help this and to champion this on a much deeper and more impactful level. And so she went back to get a master's degree in clinical psychology from Simon Fraser University, and now is helping others with her own counseling service, Smiling Hearts Counseling. And what I really love and I'm looking forward to today is for all the work that she's done for other people. She's now taking that back and repurposing that for herself as she faces a cancer diagnosis and a cancer treatment and a journey with that, and understanding that and her and the mental health that she is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So my pleasure to sit down with Donna Hutchinson.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Donna, Donna and I we've known each other now for probably, I guess, 3 years, give or take. And we had the privilege of kind of inspiring and elevating each other in the past. She has an amazing, shout out to Shelly, amazing life partner. Shelly, it was amazing. We're going to talk about Shelly a little bit later. We'll bring it back to their dynamic. But Donna, first and foremost, thank you for your willingness to sit down with me today. And I know there's a lot going on in your life. I'd like to just open up this conversation with mental health, with this broad spectrum of a word that, in my opinion, is the true pandemic of the world in this day and age. So let's have a conversation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, mental health is, it is my passion because it goes along with physical health. And I think when you pair the two, as a human being having a human experience, how do we keep ourselves, in good order, body and mind, spirit? I think it's really important that the two things balance. And as that human experience, it's oftentimes life, like you said, throws you curveballs, and it can be a challenge. And it's how do we negotiate those challenges? What resources do we have? How did we get prepared early in our childhood development to be able to withstand some of those storms that come our way? It's a challenge.
It is a challenge. And I want to dive into your past a little bit, but just in terms of mental health now versus when we were kids. I mean, we're the same age, right? So, Has mental health grown? I mean, the concerns that, these obstacles that you just mentioned, are there more today in this day and age than there were when we were teenagers, for example?
I mean, if it's certainly from my perspective feels that way, but I have to wonder just about, I mean, were we really talking about mental health in a way that didn't stigmatize it? You know, you had something wrong with you, there was something like really wrong, and let's try and medicate you back into sort of some
Mm.
health, but we don't talk about it, you know. That, so I didn't grow up understanding anything about mental health. I didn't even understand what a trigger was until I was in my 40s, even though I've been triggered left, right, and center throughout my life, right? I have no idea what the hell is a trigger, you know? So we just didn't talk about those things. And certainly
Mm.
culturally, there's certain cultures too that it's still not a topic that we talk about. They don't talk about it. So
That's
yeah.
true. That's true. I think that's a really good point that, the one positive thing I think over the years is that stigma has dissipated somewhat. It's become more of an open conversation. I think, which is interesting. I love to get your opinion on this as a professional too. It almost seems like now we've swung the opposite way, where anytime someone's feeling a little sad or a little this, they throw it in the mental health camp.
Yes. Well, I'm not surprised because, right? We either talk about it not at all, or now we over talk about it. And then, so where's the balance? So I'm not surprised about that. And, I tend to try and normalize emotions with people, especially my clients, because when they say, oh, I'm anxious, and somehow anxiety gets put into the camp of a bad thing, I say, well, do you worry about yourself when you're too joyful, or when you're too happy, or when you're too exuberant? So why is it when anxiety shows up, it can be too much? And does anxiety have something to teach us? I think it does. All emotions point to something. So when anxiety shows up, what is it trying to tell us? So I'm glad we're having the conversation, but not everything is anxiety.
Mm.
Like the word is one word. We can have other feelings. Maybe we're just worried or concerned, or something doesn't feel right. So
I really love that perception of that anxiety can teach us. It's there. So how can we flip the script to step out of the picture frame, if you will, and say, okay, what am I learning here through this? Moving forward. That's a really great distinction.
well, why is it showing up? What is the
Yeah.
context of the situation that anxiety has just shown up for you? Is it, in my mind, it's very protective. So if it's there for a reason. What's it trying to protect you from?
Mm. Is there a difference between, is anxiety escalated nervousness? Because I look at anxiety and I think of my time back on the start line in rowing,
Mm.
Or getting ready for the big race, and I mean, that to me was anxiety the night before the big championship race. Like, but is there a difference? Is there a fine line there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about performance, right? Performance
Mhm.
anxiety. And actually, in terms of arousal, you do want some. You don't want to be like overstimulated because that
Sure.
could decrease performance, but you don't want to have apathy either and have like it's no big deal and be under aroused. So there is, especially in sport, an optimal level of arousal because it's an activator, it's a motivator, and it's an accelerator. So staying in that zone. And you know what? I often find it comes to, we talk about the balance and finding sort of the median, that middle ground. And in most things, there is a middle ground. So knowing the extremes is good, but how do we bring ourselves back to baseline and utilize that in a way that enhances, in your case, motor performance, skill,
Mm.
and acuity? But we also have that for our mental performance and skill and acuity. So that's an important piece too. If we're hyper aroused or hypo aroused, we're not really thinking, we're just doing, we're reacting. We're
Right.
either fight or flight or we're shut down. So we need to figure out how to be sort of more present in ourselves, more grounded.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your journey, so Donna, we share a background in the fitness world for many
Mhm.
years, and you know, this mental health idea, this concept, was almost started, I assume, to become a common denominator in a lot of your clientele and the people that you were helping and guiding and so forth. And so uh, take us back to that, and like, what are some of the things that you were seeing during those times?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was trying to help people through behavior change and modification because in the area of fitness, a lot of the concerns that come with clients, or at least the age of the clients that I was seeing at the time I was seeing them, was all around weight loss. I want to lose weight. I want to shape up. I want to tone up. My body's changing. It really centered around that theme. And even though they might have been doing the things that they say they wanted to do in some cases, like changing their nutrition or exercising more, some people would just say they were going to do it, had a real desire. Everything pointed to a lot of change talk, yet they didn't. And they just got stuck. They just felt like, I really want to make these changes, yet there's something preventing me from doing it, or I'm making changes and I'm being sabotaged and I don't know why I'm self-sabotaging. And I was just kind of like, I don't actually know either. Like I'm lost. I don't know how to help you. And I didn't say that to people, but I certainly felt that. And I think I was hearing it enough to realize that, you know what, I want to know more, and I want to be able to do the job that I do in a more complete way. And that's what sort of led me back into school. And I also wanted to make a shift anyway, out of, full-time fitness training and that into this new endeavor. So, and now I get to incorporate both. So,
right. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a moment. At 46, you decided to go back for a master's degree. And what was that process like? Because there are a lot of people out there in their 40s, early 50s that, they just throw in the white towel, that they're kind of, it's too late to start a new career. It's too late to go back to school. It's too late. All these myriad of excuses. What was the thought process for you like with that?
Well, I'm going to be really honest. Am I dead? No. So it's not too late. It's only too late when you're dead. Then, and I don't know what happens after, but I know that, time is going to pass for me anyway. So if that's the case, why not go to school? I was very fortunate I could go part-time, and then I switched to full-time. So I realized my privilege and that I could do that. But I figured, why not? Time's going to pass anyway. It doesn't matter that when I graduate, I'm going to be 51. What does that matter? It just didn't matter to me, because I just don't see age as a limiting factor.
It's beautiful. That's a beautiful segue. I'm not going to go there yet, but that's some inner child quality right there. That was very well done, right? There's no limitations, right? So.
No, but I will tell you, when I walked into my very first class at Simon Fraser in the lecture hall, and I was as old as a teacher, I had a moment. I did. And what was that? Legally Blonde. Remember when she goes back to law school and she looks around and she has her notebook and she rushes out to get a computer? I did that. I totally had that moment, right? Everyone was on their iPads and I went out and did the same thing.
That's that. Yeah, that could be a moment. That it's a movie moment right there, Donna, for sure.
That's a moment. And I'll also say that, instead of looking at it like, oh my gosh, everyone's so much younger, and they were a lot quicker on the ball, I just said, you know what, I'm the same age as the teacher. I'm going to stand out. So I'm going to sit in front, and the teacher will notice me because of that. And because the teacher will notice me, if I need any help, I'm going to be able to ask for it, because I have wisdom now to know that teachers are there to teach. And if I struggle, I have the knowledge to go and ask. And I wanted the teacher to know who I was.
I love that.
So,
I love that. Proactive, just taking leadership, self-leadership right there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if they like you, sometimes they grade you a little better. So there was some of that too.
Yeah, we got to pull the likability card once in a while, hey, life is a game. So,
well, if you're going to study psychology, there are pluses to knowing certain things about human behavior to advance yourself a little bit. So I hope that doesn't sound self-serving, but whatever, right? Like,
oh dear. So, and now, you're working as a clinical counselor, as helping others, and are you? Here's a question for you. I'm going to ask this just out of curiosity. Mental health. Do you feel that there's a root cause, a common root cause for mental health? I know it's very individualized. I get that. Everyone has their own triggers, traumas. But is there is there something that is a root cause that's fundamental across a lot of people?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. My area of expertise is dealing with trauma. So, big T trauma, which could be like major single life events, or small t, which is more complex because it's accumulative throughout your lifespan, which talks to the inner child and childhood development. So, early on, if we don't, and I don't vilify parents for what they do or don't do, that's not my role. But my role is to understand how this person was raised and if they got the care and affection that they needed and had their needs met or not, or if they were bullied in school and how that, was so traumatic to them that, it really impacted them throughout their life. And oftentimes you can go back in someone's lifespan and see those major events and how they develop protective mechanisms to help them cope. And all that gets stuck in the body. So for example, when we're a baby and we cry, we're supposed to be picked up and soothed and our needs met and know that there's that our needs are being met. And if we're left to cry and we're unstable and nobody comes and we're left alone, we don't have language or development to understand why that is, but we certainly have the nervous system that holds those memories. So then, throughout life, if things continue to be reinforced, then the nervous system gets reinforced in that way. I liken it to a forest. If the path down the road continues to be worn, then that will be the path of least resistance that you will take mentally and physically. Forging a new path in a forest that's overgrown is difficult. And that's the switch that people, will make through different psychological interventions to help them unlearn something to learn something new, if that makes sense. So yeah, there can be a common theme for sure. And then how it plays out is very individual.
Yeah. Interesting. So obviously you mentioned inner child and I know that from my experience, there is a lot of trauma associated with that. And that's a big part of the inner child work. And in terms of the work that I do now with, coinciding with my book journey and everything, it's coming at it from a different lens in terms of just maybe understanding that, but also just really championing the childlike qualities that I feel like, can serve us as adults and coming in that way, and which we're going to get into. It's fascinating to me that everyone has an inner child moment. Everyone has a moment, I think, in their life, or as you said, a series of moments, that maybe build layer upon layer of trauma, if you will, or scar tissue that then manifests itself in adult life. And again, you said something very important where it's not about vilifying the parents, but again, is there? What is it? So is it the fact that at a certain age kids start to get programmed into, like, we lose sight of that innocence, or we lose sight of that, and then the child starts to get programmed from all these different avenues of information and manipulation and do this, do that, do that. Like, what is it? Why does it always go back to the child though?
Yeah, that's again a really good question. I mean, really it goes back there because we develop. So for example, let's say everything in your home life is just tickety-boo. You're taken out for ice cream, you have all your needs met, your parents love you, cuddle you, your siblings aren't, assholes to you and treat you okay, right? And then you go to school. And all of a sudden you're in school, maybe it's your kindergarten class, and people don't like you, they make fun of you or they laugh at you. And you don't understand what that is. You don't understand why you're being treated this way. You don't even know how to express it, except you just feel really bad. And let's say that continues to happen and it starts to get worse. Now you're being excluded from groups and you can't make friends. So you retreat because maybe, if you're a very sensitive child, then you're and you don't even know that, and your teachers don't know that, then you retreat, and it becomes an unsafe place. And then the world starts to feel unsafe to you and you don't even know why. So, if it continues to go through, and we know in high school, now we've got all kinds of bullying, not only physical bullying, but now with social media and the things that happen, I mean, it takes such an emotional toll. And who's there to really protect us? I mean, yes, the parents can step in and the school can step in, but I was bullied in school. There were my parents and teachers. And to be quite honest, I didn't feel safe with them, because when you're alone in the hallways with the girl who's pushing you around, they're not there. So you just don't feel safe. So the world starts to become unsafe. And then, it can kind of snowball.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, tying it back to how we opened this conversation too, it's like, I think that those external influences, let's say, are more magnified now than they were before, whether it is social media, whether it is this comparison culture, this all of that, I think adds to it for sure.
And then the hardest part too, really, is after a while, the person starts to think there must be something wrong with me. And then they internalize it. And when they get into adulthood, people aren't bullying them, you hope. Most often we're not. But now we just take over for ourselves. Now we have an inner critic. Now we have a perfectionist. Now we have a people-pleasing part. All these parts, right, come out, and limiting beliefs. For me, it was not good enough. I've talked about that. I've Facebooked about it. My limiting belief was, in essence, somehow I'm not good enough, because if I was good enough, why did all these things happen? And my life played out for a very long period of time, living off of that frame of reference. I put on the not good enough glasses from that part, and that part was always keeping me down, basically, out of fear that if I take a risk and I actually prove to myself that I am, that I would get hurt.
And how's that journey going for you? Are you still walking out of that jungle event, as I call it? Like, are you still walking into your ownership of your worth, or is that something that you've kind of done and dusted?
Well, I mean, yes to both and no to both. I'm always aware that that younger me who felt not good enough still exists within me. And oftentimes the protector that protects that vulnerable part of me will rear its head when it feels threatened. And because of that, I can sense it. And if I can sense it, then I can soothe it. And I do that mindfully in my head, like, oh, and I'm Jewish, and there's some Yiddish. My bubby used to say tatala. So I say, yeah, tatala, you're okay. It's okay. It's not the same situation. I got this. We're good. And I've had to practice doing that. And then of course I'm good enough. I'm good enough regardless. And that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm the best. It doesn't mean I'm trying to be the best. It just means that whatever I'm doing, I'm good enough regardless. And we got this, and we're okay.
Yeah. So Donna, let's fast forward here now to that. So you've done a lot of work. You've been on a journey. You've amassed quite a lot of knowledge and skill and understanding of the human psyche, and so forth. And now you're faced with a challenge in your life whereby you have to pull on all your own resources, I assume, to steer you through each and every day. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Life will always give you opportunities to practice your shit, and so that's kind of what's happened. I mean, when I got the diagnosis, I started last year in October, sort of going through the process of having tests done, because I had a big mass in my abdomen, which I thought was a fibroid, because I'd had fibroids years before and we dealt with it. So in my mind, it was the same thing. And I probably should have gone to the doctor a lot sooner. I probably should have had it looked at. There's a lot of things that I probably should have done. But in any case, I ended up going, and they said, well, the best course of action is, get a full hysterectomy, take out all the bits. And at that point, they'll test and see. They had done a blood test, so they already knew that my markers were up, that there was something in my blood pointing to a potential of cancer. So my mindset around that was, I don't have cancer until somebody says, Donna, you have cancer. So instead of spiraling, I just went with the facts. And until the facts were changing, I just kept that in mind. So when I had my surgery, the doctors basically said, we won't know definitively until they biopsy all the stuff, and then we'll know. So I had the surgery and I woke up and Shelly was there, of course. And it's my first question. So do I have cancer? And she looked at me, you know, you can tell the look. And she said, yes. And then my words, given I was still kind of drugged, were, that's unfortunate. So that's what it was. That was unfortunate. So, but you know, to be honest with you, I kind of had an inkling. I've always had an intuition, and I don't know why, that cancer would be in my fate somehow in my life. And I'm not a pessimist, and I didn't wish that upon me, and I didn't ask the universe for it. It was just a felt sense somehow. And you know, when you look at doctors and they're looking kind of funny, and you kind of get a sense of it. In any case, I did break down when they told me I had to do chemo, because I knew exactly what that meant. And I'm still like, I'm only halfway through that process, and it's hard. Like it's really, really freaking hard. You know, it's hard to stay positive. It's hard to stay proactive. It's just hard to utilize all the tools. But I do, and I get through it, and I'm going to be okay. So, you know, that's what I'm doing. You know?
Right. And so I imagine that journey is every day. It's a roller coaster, right?
You know, it can be, as they said, every round gets a little harder because you get a little more tired, a little more depleted. And for a fitness person, I mean, for anybody that's hard, but for someone who's always been involved in physical fitness, feeling weak for me, is hard. You know, even though I understand why I feel that way, I think those are my lowest moments, when I could feel my body changing. It changes my mental state too, big time, because of that.
Yeah.
But it's 3 days of terrible. It's like if anyone of you've had COVID out there, it's like COVID times 10 for 3 days. And then I seem to kind of come out of it. But every time I come out, it just takes a lot more to get myself back into it. So.
And with that journey, I suspect too that, you know, take us through some of the mental conversations that you have with yourself. You know, because again, you are someone that helps people overcome some mental challenges and negative self-talk and so forth. And yet now you're having to deal with that with yourself every day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I journal it because I'm a writer. So that's how I capture those days. And when I'm in those moments, I free write, and I write whatever comes out of my head. I don't edit it. And there's a lot of swear language. There's a lot of hopelessness that comes out. There's a lot of sadness. There's anger. There's irritation. So I write things like, you know, I'm fucking done with this journey. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do any more treatments. I've had it. You know, I'm good. I mean, it's just garbled, but it needs to come out, because a part of me is in despair, you know, is feeling it. And I think it's healthy to acknowledge that part, and then to also look at the other side to say, yes, we feel that way, but the treatments are helping us, and it's giving us an opportunity to live longer. And I will tell you, you know, I appreciate my life so much more now because of this diagnosis, that I don't think I would ever take for granted anything moving forward in my life, because I don't actually know how long it's going to be. Like, no one said I'm going to die, so I don't think that. But, you know, my life expectancy could be normal after or not. And I don't want to waste any time now.
Right.
So I deal with those down days by being truthful to myself about what they are. But I also don't wallow. You know, I don't stay there. I stay for as long as I need.
I do think that's really important. I am an advocate for, you know, sitting in the poo-poo a little bit and just, you know, acknowledging what's showing up and giving that its due voice. In your case, writing that down. You know, in my journey and kind of my life event, jungle event, same thing. It was just letting that voice be heard, whether it was through journaling, whether it was through self-dialogue. Obviously writing a book was part of that, was kind of the end tail of that journey. But, you know, I think for me, and I've never been in a situation like yours. However, at face value, I do think honoring that voice is the right way to go. And letting it get out, letting the swear bombs go, and the negative, this, let it get out, let it get, it's toxins in your body, it's toxins in your mind. And we have to get that out. We have to purge, right? So
yeah. And I mean, I have a counselor too. I have two actually. I have one from the cancer clinic, and then I have my own, because I mean, I also need that perspective of somebody else as well. And I mean, I value counseling, not only because I'm a counselor, but I value it because of it still gives me lots. It's still, I mean, I'm just a human as well. So of course, and going through something so life-changing, so profound. And Shelley and I seek counseling for our relationship, because it takes a toll on our relationship too.
Yeah.
So, and then I reached out to community. I made a post when I first started this on Facebook asking for support from whomever wanted to give it. I called it Operation Cheer Donna Up. And I just said, right? I was very explicit. I said, listen, if you can send me a note, don't email it to me. Don't do the thing on Facebook. I wanted something tangible, like a piece of paper. It didn't have to be extreme. That's it, just whatever. And I've been inundated with cards and notes, and they still continue to come. And in my down days, I open them and I look at them and I feel the energy from people, and it's really helped. And I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful to myself for reaching out and asking for what I needed. And I'm grateful for the people who answered that call.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. And Shelley, let's bring it back to Shelley for a moment. I feel like we should get Shelley on the show right now. Boom. She can
yeah. She's here. I call her in. But
I know, right? Yeah. Shelley.
I know. She's great.
So I definitely want to switch now. I want to bring some play, some inner childness into this to coincide with this last section of our conversation today, Donna. One thing that I love about the two of you from the moment I first met you is this idea of play. I think the two of you embody play in a relationship, arguably better than anyone that I've seen. And it's true. So, and play is such a powerful childlike quality that we can bring into, as I say to everyone, relationships, bring into a business development, a business venture, whatever it is. So share a little bit about the play of you two and some of those inner childlike qualities.
Well, I mean, Shelley is at heart a big goof. So that really helps. And I have to say, she brings that out in me. I mean, I have that quality too, but when she starts to get going and we're just free, we don't edit ourselves. We just play off each other. Like, the Forrest Gump shrimp bit. Anytime somebody says shrimp, we go right into it, you barbecue it, you can boil it, you don't care who's around. We just do it, So that's just who we are together sometimes, we just bring that out in each other. But she's definitely the foremost goof in the relationship. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah. What does, let's jump back in time a little bit. What was little Donna like, little D back in the day?
Oh, that's a really good question. Like in terms of child qualities.
Yeah. Like, are you aware of any little D-like qualities that you are still bringing forth as an adult in this day and age?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that you think about it, you can probably see the tail end of a teddy bear up there somewhere. There you go. So as a kid, I love stuffed animals. It was just all over them. So I still do, and I honestly see the world like a Pixar movie. I love cartoons. If I had the skill, I would have been an animator, anything to do. I just love the lightness of it. And that's never left me, and I see a lot of humor in a lot of things in life, and I love to laugh. And I believe that definitely comes from, way back, because I just think that that's just the way I kind of live my life, I suppose. Yeah. I go to chemo with a teddy bear, and the nurses are like, wow, more people should do that. And I'm not afraid to do that because it makes me feel good. So yeah, and it soothes that little girl in me who just finds that joy, with those things around her.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I have same. I'm a Star Trek fanatic, so I still have my 1974 Captain Kirk doll from back in the day, and it's actually in the book. It has plays quite a role in the book. But
Mhm.
back when little Jimmy used to go to the hospital all the time for asthma, it would always be right there, clutched in my hand. It was that comfort and that courage and that leadership that I needed to go into to boldly go up to the pediatric wing and spend time in an oxygen tent alone, and things like that. So and I still have it. I still have it, and it's been with me everywhere. So yeah, so I think those connections are beautiful, and I think honoring. I say this, Donna. I feel like everyone should. Well, truthfully, I feel like everyone should write their own life story.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they have to be published, but there's so much beauty, specifically though, to write their childhood, to sit down and revisit and reacquaint with a lot of great things in that. For me, it's been very cathartic. It's opened my eyes to a lot of what we were talking about earlier. Some traumatic, smaller events that I can see now, like a forensic. You write one's life, you start to kind of put things together like a CSI episode. You're like,
Mhm.
that behavior there. Oh, right, and it's pretty amazing if you're trying to really take ownership over your life and understand how
Mhm.
did I end up here. Well, let's go back and revisit it. Um, but in that childlike arena for all of us, I think there's so much wisdom to be had, uh, and so much that we can bring forth in our adult life that I think can aid us in all aspects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should also add, if it's okay, to also acknowledge that there are those people that actually do not remember their childhood because of the traumatic events, and they have blocks, they have big gaps.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that work, as you suggested, can be very cathartic. It can move us forward. It can be very reflexive. But for some people, it can be more traumatizing because they don't have the memory, and it's because of where they've come from. So, however, there is a therapeutic approach of rescripting, and in terms of, well, what would you have liked for yourself growing up for childhood, and so there's a whole piece
Mm.
on being able to do that. So, but regardless, that if we can find those elements within ourselves at play and not be afraid to use them in our adult life because of or fear of what others may say about us or view about us, that's very awesome. But it's boy, that's real authenticity. So I would hope people could get there, but that's tough. Mhm.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge it. That's a really great point about the rescripting, and I think that's very powerful. And for anyone out there that might fall into that category, if you will, where it's a block, and there are still ways to do some work to maybe get some insights or get back in touch with the younger self. So I think that's a beautiful distinction. So thank you for throwing that in
Yeah,
there.
of course. Yeah.
All right. DH, we are getting close here to the end.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you a question, if I may. I'll
Okay.
put you on the spot. Da, 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 da,
Yay, okay.
da. Uh, in the work that I do, in my book specifically, I talk about there's a point in everyone's life where they walk through the doorway of adulthood, and
Mm,
for some it's earlier, for some it's later, but it inevitably always happens. And when that happens, most times, if not all times, there ends up being a fissure that's created between the child and the person that evolves from the child into the adult, and so forth.
mm,
If you could go back in time to that moment in your life
mm.
and step into little Donna, what do you think she would say to you as you embark on your real life journey?
Wow. I wish you had asked me that 40 minutes ago. Oh gosh, oh my gosh. That's a really tough question because, sometimes in our lives we don't just have one distinct fissure. There could be many. So when I think about which little Donna I want to connect with, that's where I'm getting a little bit of the stumbling block because I've had to connect with so many of them at different stages in my life. And I can also feel a fog coming over me, which is interesting. So that can happen with people, right? When somebody asks a question that touches upon a piece of our inner childhood, right? With trauma in our background, it can cause that. So I'm just calling it out in the real moment here because that's what I'm experiencing. And I almost want to answer from my adult perspective, which is interesting too, because that was not your question.
That's okay. I'll take that. No, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I think if I were to look back and want to reassure sort of all of those different parts of me as a child, that that things in life do work out, and as we get older, we do develop more skills and resources and abilities to cope, and things that used to hold us back in the past can change in our present, which then aligns with our future. So there is a wise woman within, and man, and or gender non-specific individual as a human having the wisdom to do that. So yeah, I don't really think that answers your question, but I'm going to go with that one.
We're going to go with that one. Far be it for me to argue with a clinical psychologist. Okay.
I don't know. That's a tough one. Ask me the question one more time. Let's see, just for fun.
Sure. All right, Donna. In our lifetime, we all have a doorway that we walk through at one point in our life where the little Donna says goodbye to the adult Donna on her journey. And if you could go back to that moment or that time period in your life, now as an adult, going back, what would you whisper into the ear of your younger self to give you, to have her impart in you some words of encouragement or something to think about as you step into adult life? Okay.
So just so I understand, if I'm whispering into my little self's ear, would it be some advice or some part of support? Is that what you're suggesting?
Like for example, old Donna goes, hey, little D, tell myself not to sweat the small stuff.
Okay.
Right. And then she's like, as you go off into adulthood, one thing I'd like you to do is just don't trip on the small shit. It's menial. It doesn't mean anything. Whatever. I don't know. Right.
Okay. Now I understand. All right. So this is definitely what I would say. I would say to my younger D self, you are good enough regardless. You are lovable regardless. You are likable regardless. And you are absolutely perfect the way you are. That's what I would say.
Well, that's the mic drop right there. There it is.
Yeah.
And now, and honestly, from my perspective, that makes sense given what you shared earlier about your one distinct limiting belief.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Like that was a beautiful bookend moment. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And I'll say to your viewers, I believe that about all of them as well. Because when we're born, there's no way that those things are any different. A baby should have all that, is deserved of all that.
It's true.
Is entitled to it all.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Donna, you are an inspiration. You are an educator. You are a child at heart, and you are also a champion for mental health, a champion for other women out there that are going through something similar like you right now. And your strength and your impact on others is because you're vulnerable and because you're transparent about the bad days, the good days, the swearing, all of that. And so I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for just jumping on today and having a conversation about all this.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for your very kind words, and I take them into my heart, and that's lovely. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Thank you. And speaking of hearts, anybody wants to find out Donna, meet Donna, get in contact with her, smilingheartscounseling.com is the way to go. Obviously, this will also be on Facebook. We'll make sure that people have your contact information in the show notes, whether they find this on LinkedIn, IG, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Of course, this will also be streamed on all the podcast platforms. So everyone will have this. And I hope, Donna, that you continue to burn bright.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank
most
you.
definitely will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to all the viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in again, or the listeners out there as well in podcast land. Thank you for tuning in. This is my little Jimmy give back to all of you, to share some candid, open conversations with some amazing people, and bringing back just some curiosity, some wonder, some limitless mindset, the sweet air of possibility, that what if that we woke up to every morning as a child, and bringing that into our adult sandbox. So this is all based on my book, All In With Love, My Journey to the Hero Within, which is out now. It's available all over the world, 50,000 booksellers. It is my memoir, my life story, getting back to my younger self, back to that little Jimmy that I spoke of. So I encourage you all to check it out, and stay tuned for some more great conversation with some amazing people. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye for now.